Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Brandon. I haven't done a film review in a while, but even though I've seen a ton of films this year, I probably could have reviewed 50 films just from what I've seen in the theater. I've been doing some work in Beijing, so I've been watching a lot of films, not just foreign films that have been coming into China, but also some of the local films. But today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Ip Man 4, which just released in China. And of course, I'm still in China. I'm in Beijing right now. And in just a few days, I'm going to be headed over to Japan for another trip. But today on the agenda is the discussion of the fourth film in the Ip Man series. Now, I have seen all of the Ip Man films. I saw the first two. I believe that the second one I also saw while I was in the U.S. I don't think that I had moved over to China just yet. But the first one, when it came out, I was a big fan. And the second one, I liked it too. But I still felt that the first one was better. And if you are a fan of the series, then you know that the third one featured Mike Tyson. And there was a really big scene where he and Ip Man fought. And basically, it was kind of a stalemate. It was just a big fight scene. That was kind of the main draw of the film. And there have been some emotional things in the film, such as him losing his wife and other things. And there's a little bit of emotion in this film because, not all is well. And I was debating about whether or not I should give spoilers, and I've decided not to spoil anything. So everything that I say about the film is just going to be my opinion based on non-plot or story-threatening elements, if that makes sense. But I will say this, that essentially it just starts off focused on Ip Man's home life with his son and what's going on there, and they've got some trouble with the relationship. And you've probably seen the trailers. He goes to the U.S. and the primary reason he actually comes, even though he gets invited by who happens to be one of my favorite all-time heroes, which is Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee, the character of, well, I would say the portrayal of Bruce Lee does appear in the film, and that's really cool. But I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that's known. So I've seen it in pictures and posters and stuff. So my guess is you already know that. If not, I'm sorry if that spoils it for you. But I didn't know that actually going in because, like I said, I'm in China, and the advertisements and stuff that they would be showing for it, I'm not going to see that because I don't watch Chinese media. I don't watch Chinese television, and I'm not watching a lot of the Chinese movie channels, so I don't see these ads or whatever. I just see whatever I pull up on YouTube, and since I don't, I don't see a lot of really great quality movies while I'm in China. Plus, a lot of them are censored. So I don't tend to watch the trailers too closely. I just know if I want to see it or not, whether it's bad or good, I'll be the judge of that. I like to be surprised. So I just kind of walk in without knowing. But overall, I will say I've seen 3 films just in the past 2 days and in the theater. One of those was Star Wars. One of those was Jumanji, The Next Level. Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, of course. And then this one, Ip Man 4, the final chapter or whatever. It's called, the finale. Yeah. But anyway, the film was overall okay. It wasn't bad. It definitely wasn't amazing, and it did have a lot of fights in it, but several times the fights felt forced and unbelievable and unnecessary. And I'm not saying that all of the situations and the stories and the fights and the other movies were believable and all of that sort of thing, and that they weren't forced. But I will say that maybe I liked this one better than the third one, because even though the third one had some novelty to it, maybe you like it or not, I don't know. But the third one wasn't really high on my list. I still felt like, okay, 1 and 2, I liked those, but the third one was definitely taking a step back. And I wouldn't say that necessarily that this film was taking a step forward, but if you were to compare it to the third one, it's definitely a step forward in that regard. But I wouldn't say that it's adding a whole lot of value to the franchise, especially since this is the last one, and I know that there's the introduction of the Bruce Lee and some stuff, but in real life, I think you probably, if you're a fan of this series or a fan of Bruce Lee, I feel like maybe already that there's a lot of drama, real drama that surrounded the life of Bruce Lee, and when he went to the U.S. and started teaching foreigners there, and there was a lot of stuff that happened, and what parts of it are true and what parts are not, I don't know for sure, but we can all agree that there was a lot of mess going on, and some of that appears in this film, but of course, it ultimately isn't the primary focus of the film. But they start off kind of in what I feel like is in an honest portrayal of the annoyance they have with foreigners learning martial arts and that sort of thing, which is not the focus of the film. Remember that's not the focus of the film. It just kind of appears in the film, but the way they handle it just kind of comes and goes. It just kind of goes away. This big issue that they have with Bruce just kind of disappears. And then even Bruce, just for me, just kind of disappears. And obviously they didn't intend for Bruce to play this, Bruce's portrayal. They didn't intend for him to be a huge part of the film and be the focus of the film, because it's not about him. But I feel like the manner in which he was introduced and the things that he did, and then ultimately how he was just suddenly gone until it was the end. I felt like it was just like it could have been done better. It was a little unbelievable, but like I said, there are lots of fights in it. I just wish that the fights had made more logical sense to me than they did, and also felt like we see the there's always one big final bad fight that they've got to accomplish or whatever in these types of films, and when they get to that point, it wasn't okay. Let me compare it to something for you. Did you see Jet Li's Fearless? Jet Li's Fearless is an excellent film, and there's a lot of this element in this film, which is basically, the weak Chinese kung fu, can't beat Western fighting and other styles like Eastern styles like karate, for example, or big strong American guys, who've got muscles who can just pummel you into the ground and that sort of stuff. And so in Fearless, the setting was actually in China, and there were fighters from different countries, and they were all competing, and then Jet Li decided to take them all on. If you haven't seen that movie is in my top 3 favorites of all time. That film is a masterpiece. It is absolutely amazing, and it is my number 1 favorite Chinese film of all time. If you haven't seen that, you're interested in Ip Man 4, and you haven't seen Jet Li's Fearless, then there's something wrong with you, because that film is a classic. This film, I wouldn't say is ever going to be a classic. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. However, it has a lot of the similar elements that Jet Li's Fearless does in the story or the plot. And it's just transposed in a different location. And that's kind of one of my other problems with it, because I feel like it's a little forced. And I also feel like it's not aimed at Americans or Westerns in general. It's specifically aimed at white guys, and that once again, it almost feels like the social justice warrior agenda, where everything bad is blamed on whites. But I think it's very interesting because I have a friend here in China who's from Guangdong, which is he actually lives in Guangzhou. He went to school in New York for many years, so he's Cantonese, and of course Hong Kong, in the area where Ip Man and Bruce Lee are from, in that area is also Cantonese. And my friend said that his time in the U.S. has shown him nothing but the people that he never had to worry about were white. The blacks, the Hispanics, and the other Asians. These were the groups that he had to stay away from. These are the groups that really, gave problems for the other Asians like him who weren't part of a gang or a clique or anything like that. He just wanted to live his life, go to school. He said that the only kids he didn't have to worry about were the white kids. And this film isn't like that at all. And that's something you never see in the media. You don't ever see the media talking about, racism from blacks or Hispanics or Asians. It's always from white. And that's one of my problems that I have with the film, is that I feel like, okay, definitely when kids are in school or people are from another country and they're either not assimilating or they haven't assimilated very well into the culture, or maybe just because they talk different or look different, there definitely is some discrimination. And that goes for every country. But the way it was done and how over the top it was, I just felt like it was a little too much. And so that kind of, led to my somewhat dissatisfactory feeling about the film, because I didn't like that they took a character or a real life person like Ip Man and this franchise and went that direction. And, because I felt like the way that it was done in Jet Li's Fearless made sense, and it was well done. It was respectful to everybody, and it was believable. So it was amazing. But in the new Ip Man film, I just felt like, no, it seems like stirring up hatred against whites in particular. And it also didn't make any sense because some of the wording, I didn't look to see who wrote the film, or if someone like if an English native helped them with how they translated it. But, it was all actually, they spoke everything in Chinese, but they did have English translation too. So I didn't have to just rely on my Chinese skills. I could see the English that was written there too. And of course, when they were in America, there was a lot of English speaking going on. So not all of the film needed to be translated. And some of the stuff that they were saying just was like, what? It was way, way overboard and didn't really jive, didn't really make sense to me. So anyway, it just felt like too much of an agenda. It felt less like a foreign film in some ways and more like a social justice warrior film where it's, all whites, all bad. Oh yeah. And it was, there was one point in the film where the Chinese guys that were there were referred to as a different race, but like Chinese in particular. But Chinese is not a race. So this is essentially, it's just nationality. But just a lot of stuff like that in the film, just it was handled incorrectly. So I didn't care for that. But the fights themselves, this is the thing that gets me. I mentioned before, and I want to get back to that before I forget. They had several fights, and they set it up to where, similar to, once again, the Jet Li movie, where all the foreigners, not just from the West, but also some Eastern foreigners are beating all of the Chinese kung fu guys in fights and making them look bad, making them look weak. And so, of course, the kung fu guys want to prove themselves, but the American guys are making it even, more pointed, like they're coming after them on purpose to show them that this is America, we're strong, and karate's the best. That's another thing that doesn't make any sense, because karate doesn't come from America, and they didn't spend any time at all, focusing on how karate comes from. It doesn't even come from America; it comes from Japan. But they were the Marines in the film. They were dead set about proving that karate was the best form of fighting, and I thought, why? So these white guys who are so racist and discriminating, they're walking around wearing their uniforms, their karate uniforms, and their karate belts, and touting karate as the best. And at the same time, they're supposed to be so bad and racist against Asians. And they were even saying that go back to Asia. Some of the characters like go back to Asia or whatever, but it just there were some contradictory ideas there, and I'm like, wait a second, are these guys hating on just people from China? I don't understand that. Why hate on just Chinese and Kung Fu in particular, but say absolutely nothing about other Asian races, especially Japanese, because that's where karate comes from, and you're using it, and you're wearing the clothes, and you're teaching your students at the Marine Corps, at the actual base. You're teaching your students karate, and they were literally saying it's the best. There's nothing better. But then in the next breath, saying these things that are literally racist against Asians. This is stupid. It's stupid, contradictory BS is what it is. And so that's why I say that the contradictory ideas, that are presented, it's like, you need to pick a side and stick with it. Your story needs to have a particular angle, not two. It doesn't need to contradict itself. And it does that a few times. But once again, getting back to the actual fights, they, how in a lot of these films, like especially in Fearless, there are several people who fight. Maybe some of the locals fight the foreigners and they're not able to beat them. And so the main character will go and try to fight all of them, and he'll just fight one at a time or whatever. And then he has to fight the main bad guy, and it's a big fight, Some stories, even the bad guy will fight the good guy early on when the good guy's not ready, and he'll beat him up really bad, maybe almost kill him. And then the good guy will go and become better and then come back and have a big fight and then win. But they didn't do Ip Man 4 like that. They did have a lot of fights, but like I said, some of the fights made no sense at all. Like when they introduced Bruce Lee, they had to have a fight with a bunch of guys who were they just didn't like him. He didn't like his showboating and all this other stuff. And I know that sounds like authentic Bruce Lee and that happened in reality. I understand that, but it wasn't done in a believable way. Once again, it was very forced. It didn't feel like it was natural, and it didn't really have a point, because I felt like, oh, I didn't know they were going to really have Bruce's, appearance in the film is such an important part of the film, and then it wound up not being. He just kind of came in to get something done for the story and then disappeared. And he would come back in when it was needed for something small and then disappear. And I got tired of that. It annoyed me. Even when he was going to help him do something, they couldn't even show him helping him. They just... He said he was going to get something for him, and then suddenly he had it. And you probably know what I'm talking about whenever you see it. But anyway, I want to get back to the fighting thing. Ip Man himself, well, he's not the only one. Some of these American fighters, they kick the crap out of almost all of the fighters again and again and again and again and again and again. I mean, they really make them look bad. And then finally, Ip Man gets, he fights several times, and he whips pretty much everybody except for, one of the main initial antagonists, which is one of the Chinese guys from the San Francisco Chinatown Association that's there. Because in real life, that there was an organization that were really against what Bruce Lee was doing, trying to bring the martial arts, Chinese martial arts, Kung Fu, to foreigners. And so they had a problem with that. They wanted Ip Man to do something about it. I don't think that's a spoiler. That's just, that's reality. Everybody knows about that. So they have a discussion about that, and he gets into an argument with the guy, and they wound up having a short scuffle to try to figure out who's in the right. And that ends abruptly. And that's another thing. The way it ends, I won't say, but the way it ends, I thought it was going to be a little more important than it was. And they make it look like it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. But by the time Ip Man finally gets to the big fight and fights, it just, and especially the way they did it, it just didn't seem like it mattered too much. even the response of the people who were gathered around was the way it was, the direction of the filmmaker who chose to set it up the way they set it up. Even that felt forced. So even in that scene, the guys who were responding to the end of that fight seemed like they were responding out of a forced way. They were forced to respond that way. So I just overall I felt let down. And as I'm looking at the screen right here, it says that the production budget was $52 million. And I have to say that I'm absolutely shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that this film cost $52 million. It's an hour and 47 minutes long, and it cost $52 million. I don't know how it cost that much. I really don't. I seriously don't. Because The Wandering Earth, the Chinese sci-fi movie, that cost around $55 million or so. And I can't help but wonder, maybe half of that was Donnie Yen's salary or something. I don't know. But I really don't know why this film cost that much. And I don't know. Oh yeah, I was shocked about this because in China there was one scene where he looks out the window and he sees his neighbor who's changing clothes, and you can see her chest. I was shocked. I was shocked about that. So if you're thinking about taking your young kids to see it, remember that the first time he's in the U.S. and he's calling back to Hong Kong on the phone, he looks out the window. He sees a girl changing, and she doesn't have on a shirt at all. And you can see, I was surprised. I've never seen that in China in the cinema before. So interesting. But anyway, is it worth seeing in the cinema? Well, I would go see it, even if I knew everything beforehand. I would have gone to see it anyway, because like I said, I was an Ip Man fan, or I am an Ip Man fan of the series. Now I've seen all 4. And it's got some classic moments in it, with the fast punching or whatever. But it couldn't completely pull me into the film. And it also has it incorporated some of the common elements of Chinese films that I'm getting kind of tired of, which is the element of dad this, dad that. Oh, dad, I'm so sorry. The relationship between the father and the son. There's just too much of a focus in China on that position. The father, baba. I'm just tired. I would like to see one good Chinese film without that element to it. That would be amazing. Or if they did it in a way that made more sense, because I'm tired of them putting it in. But normally don't have to see that too much in a Hong Kong's type film, but this is clearly influenced by mainland China, because a lot of mainland Chinese films have that. But anyway, I think that's all I have for now. I will say that there are some things in the film that are enjoyable. The fight scenes are okay. Overall, I mean, I see that right now it's got a rating already online of 7.5, and I think maybe that's a little high. Maybe I would just say it's a 7 or maybe just slightly under 7. I feel bad about giving it like a 6.8 or something, but it's really not so great. But it's definitely worth seeing if you're a fan. And I think maybe that's all I have to say. But I hope you really really do like it. I hope you enjoy it, and that's all for now. Maybe if I thought about doing the Star Wars review, but maybe it's pointless. It's not really worth talking about, I think. But Jumanji 2, I enjoyed that. That was fun. I liked it. At first, I thought I wasn't going to like it as I was watching it, but as the film went on, I liked it. I liked the choices. I enjoyed it. So that was funny. But that's all for now, and I'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.